Good evening. This is Chief Mike Brown. First and foremost, I want to say thank you. For those of you who have returned home, I hope you did so unharmed. Thanks for the outpouring of love, support, and prayers. I want you to know right now that we continue to operate under a unified command structure, and we want to thank our federal, state, and local partners. Currently, the Air National Guard has arrived. Officers from 13 additional law enforcement agencies here in the Valley have arrived and are helping us. We want to give everyone the time to comply voluntarily with the curfew. We are driving around and announcing it and hoping everyone will disperse and go home. We are doing our best to safely enforce the curfew and ask for peace to return to our city. It is time to go home. This is not helping. Please, parents, call your kids and get them back home. Nothing good can come from this now. We'll be arresting those who do not comply. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief Brown. I've just been out with General Turley of the Air National Guard, Governor Herbert, in a helicopter to see what's happening on the streets of Salt Lake City. And for the most part, our city streets are clear and they appear to be secure. But in the downtown area, there's a concentration of people, and currently the law enforcement that Chief Brown has talked about, please do not go downtown. It is not yet a secure site. If you are downtown, please go home. I want to reiterate that we support the right of people to peaceably assemble and to protest, and what we've seen downtown, particularly this afternoon and this evening, is not that. We want to dialogue with you, and we are committed to having a police department that's equated with safety for every resident and not violence. But violence and destruction are not productive. Please go home before more innocent people and businesses are harmed. We will take a couple of questions if there are any from the media.
The first question we have is from Rosie Wynn. Rosie, you have to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Mayor Mendenhall, Chief Brown, thank you for your time. I wanted to ask you guys, we sort of expected that something of this scope was going to happen today with everything that's going around the country. But with the way things have developed today, where are you guys gauging on the situation right now? We've seen multiple officers who've had to step back with injuries. Some of our field crews have been injured. What's your guys' gauge on the situation right now? Do we expect this to go into the night?
Chief Brown, do you want to take that?
Yeah, thank you. We do expect it to go for some time, but we've taken, I think, the necessary steps to enact a curfew, to ask and plead, and we want people to voluntarily comply. We don't want to have to arrest people, but we are prepared to do so. And this curfew will be in effect until Monday morning at 6 a.m. And so we have the resources and to do exactly what we need to do to keep the city safe and free from vandalism and violence.
On that note, what is the path forward after Monday? We understand that at 6 a.m., that's when the curfew is going to end.
I would love to say that we can end that curfew even before that, but we have that proclamation in place through Monday at 6 a.m., as you've stated, and we will continue to analyze the situation. I could see the cleanup efforts and the community recovery efforts being community-led. Definitely the city will be out there working with the property owners and repairing the infrastructure that's been damaged. But as a community, Salt Lake City comes together. We are innovative, we are strong, and we will come back from this together as well.
We're also dealing with COVID right now. Are you worried about masks, social distancing, the safety of your officers?
Yes, we're worried about all those things right now. But right now, we're more concerned with the violence and the things that are being thrown at officers. I want you to know that one of our officers was attacked with a baseball bat. Somebody ran up behind him and struck him to the back of the head. Had it not been for his helmet, he could have been seriously injured and maybe killed. Right now, he's in Bravo condition at the hospital. But to capitalize on what Mayor Mendenhall said, this city, this police department has always been open to dialogue. And that's where we need to go. We need to go back to the table. The things we're seeing tonight, this is not helpful. This does not promote the things, the dialogue and the conversation that we really need to have. And it's my commitment as the chief, and I know Mayor Mendenhall is the very same. We will sit down and talk, but we cannot talk in circumstances like this. So we want this to end, and we will be more than willing to meet and talk about anything that we can do to prevent this in the future.
Now, if we don't clear, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The statement that we issued earlier this morning before the protests began about where we're at as a city, where our policies are at as a police department, and where we want to go with the community remains the same. The violence, the destruction that's happened this afternoon has zero effect on where we're going as a city and as a community. We're ready to get to work. Let's start getting our city put back together. Let's stop with the destruction, and let's get to the real work of racial justice.
If we don't clear the streets tonight, what is going to happen?
We will continue with our efforts throughout this curfew period. And we feel that we have a plan, and we feel like we have the resources to do what we need to do. Of course, we would hope that we don't have to use any force. We hope that we don't have to make any arrests. We would like those that are out there tonight to hear our words and ask them to please voluntarily go home, and let's sit down in a different time, in a different situation, and talk about the things that are concerning all of us across the country.
Chief Pat Reevey, Deseret News. Do you have any updates on number of injuries and number of arrests?
Pat, last time I checked, we had 6 arrests. As far as injuries, we have the one officer that was injured who was struck by a baseball bat. We have 2 that have gone to the hospital for heat exhaustion, and then we have 6 others that are being treated at a fire station for heat exhaustion and may have to be transported to the hospital. It's been a very hot day. They've been wearing the vests and the personal protection gear. That is very hot, and it has caused some of these injuries. And so,
and what's the most common arrest charge at this point?
Let me check on that, Pat. We'll put something out here shortly.
Okay, and can you speak more to the man who appeared to threaten protesters with a bow and arrow and then had his car overturned and burned?
We're looking into that as well, Pat. I will have something, and I can put something out here when I get that information back from the field.
Okay, thank you.
Roger McDonough has a question.
Yeah, actually, my question was the same. How many injuries there have been, both among officers and protesters? Can you give us an update on how many protesters have been injured as well?
I don't know of any right now. I'm not saying there hasn't, but I don't know of any that have been reported to us right now.
And sorry, would you remind us one more time how many people have been arrested?
6 individuals.
Thank you, Chief Brown.
I believe we have another question from Rosie Wynn.
All right, sorry, I'm getting used to unmuting my mic. This question is for Chief Brown. Okay. Chief, it feels like this week is a very heavy week for law enforcement. We had Orem Police who lost an officer this week, and now we're having this protest, this very violent protest in Salt Lake City. How are you feeling?
This has been a difficult week for everyone. I mean, it's been a difficult week across the country. It's been a difficult week for law enforcement, and especially I have to go back and say to the family of Mr. Floyd, our condolences go out to him, but also all law enforcement across the country. We look at this as a very disturbing situation because those 4 officers have put us in this situation. They have undone the great work that so many law enforcement officers and agencies have tried to instill and build trust and relationships over the past 4 years. And then to culminate with the death of the Ogden officer, that's tragic. And then again, tonight we're dealing with these protests. So it's been a rough week, a very difficult week for everyone.
Chief, can you still hear me? What can the citizens of Salt Lake City expect tomorrow morning on the streets?
We will have our officers on the streets. We will be enforcing the curfew. I'm hoping that through the night hours, the late night hours, that we get compliance. But we're prepared to stay on the streets and with this effort throughout the curfew period. We'll reassess tomorrow morning what we need and want, what we need to do, but we're prepared and we have the staffing to do exactly what we've asked people to do and what we need to do.
Do you know if we'll see National Guard on the streets tomorrow?
You'll probably see them tonight. We're waiting for them to show up, and we will deploy them as soon as we get them briefed and up to speed.
Thank you everyone so much for your time. We'll continue to keep you updated. If you need anything additional, please reach out to us, but we appreciate you taking the time tonight.